Rafiu, thank you for joining us for this interview. Pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So, very quickly, we saw news that recently broke that the governor had dissolved his entire cabinet. Which was shocking for many of us because we realized that the cabinet has not been in place for up to a year. So I'd like to ask, what was the reason behind the dissolution of that cabinet? Was it a case of, the commissioners not living up to the governor's expectation, or there are other plans to hire better people who have more capacity to deliver on the governor's agenda? What was the real reason?
Well, thank you again for having me. The law allows the chief executive, that's the governor or the president, to appoint commissioners, advisors as cabinet members. But the law is silent about whether or not they can state the reasons for disengaging or maybe dissolution or reshuffle, as the case may be. Now, in this case, what has happened is the dissolution of the cabinet, with the exception, of course, of the SSG. Now, you are also aware that the HOS is a statutory member of the cabinet. Of course, the HOS is still in place. So basically, what has happened is a routine. It's something that happens in every democracy, particularly in Africa, where we are familiar with. So there's nothing strange with the governor dissolving his cabinet. It is what happens in our democracy, and the law gives the latitude to the governor to reshuffle, to dissolve cabinet, and then reappoint, as the case may be.
Yes.
You may discover some members who were part of the old cabinet may be reappointed. The law allows for that.
I understand. Quite frankly, I understand you. I understand you totally. I know that the law empowers the governor to hire or fire. They serve at his pleasure. I also know that there is nothing absolutely illegal about firing the people that you hire as well within the rights of the governor. I was just wondering that there has to be a reason behind firing an entire cabinet just barely 1 year after you appointed them. But it's fine that if there's no particular reason for that, that's completely fine. I'm just a bit worried that it's just been 1 year and you're firing an entire cabinet. And this goes to my second question, which is, it also took a few months before the governor hired most of these commissioners and special advisors. Many even actually wondered whether the time and the delay in hiring these people would have slowed the pace of governance in Kwara. Because it took quite a number of weeks before he finally hired most of these SAs or appointed these commissioners. So again, it brings back the question: is this a strategy from His Excellency to save Kwara State some costs, just like the argument that was made in Osun a couple of years ago, where the governor said he was saving money for the state by not appointing commissioners? Is that the same strategy for the Kwara State governor? Is he trying to save money from the cabinet, or is it that he's struggling to find competent people to appoint in Kwara State? Basically, which is it?
Well, what I can say to that question is that this is a democracy, and don't forget that in every democracy, including in the West, you have stakeholders, you have party elders, you have community leaders, and when you are going to set up a cabinet, it ought to be a product of a very wide and robust consultation with those stakeholders. So that may have informed the fact that the governor delayed the formation of his cabinet. It doesn't mean that we do not have competent people everywhere in Kwara State. We do, but you see, when you come to power the way we did, the Autogare revolution is a product of many stakeholders coming together to say we need to take back our state. So when we are going to set up a cabinet, it is natural that the governor was going to consult widely with several stakeholders before setting up the cabinet. And that was what happened.
Okay, so let me move to the issue of the teachers that were recently fired by the state governor. I think about 2,414 teachers who were relieved of their duties. First of all, I think the statement which was supposedly credited to you was the fact that they were not qualified, and that's why they were fired from their duty or from their jobs. Aren't you worried, that you're firing over 2,000 teachers during a pandemic at a time where unemployment is hitting the roof, and this will bring untold hardship to several families in Kwara State? I mean, if you take the statement by the NLC chairman in your state, Alhaji Issa Ore, who clearly stated that this was going to bring untold hardship to the citizens. And it was going to affect students in classrooms because they were not going to have adequate teachers to teach them in school. So I'm wondering, I'm struggling to understand the decision to fire over 2,000 teachers, without what many would call due process.
Really, I wouldn't know what you mean by due process, because let me begin by saying that we were not supposed to have 2,440 teachers in the first instance. That is under that category, if you truly follow that story. The approval to hire teachers for SUBE captured only 1,100 teachers. That's the decision, the approval by the former governor was for SUBE to hire 1,100 NCE teachers in specific subjects: English, mathematics, and sciences. Now, the question is, how did that approval translate to anyone hiring 2,414? That was a clear case of impunity. That was a clear case of people not adhering to executive approval, and that has no place in a constitutional democracy. So that happened before we came on board. When we came on, that was shortly before we came on board. When we came on board, the government felt there was not going to be a blanket dismissal of everyone. So he directed that there should be screening for everyone. Now, the screening should be total and should take cognizance of the fact that the approval was for NCE teachers. Now, after that screening, we got 1,658 persons who were adjudged to be qualified and to be competent, and then the rest were asked to go. Now, but after that figure came to His Excellency and he granted approval, which was born out of the fact that he didn't want to disengage people and then make them unhappy and what have you. He felt that maybe we could try to correct the process to make it more open, to ensure that only the right people get hired. But a few months after then, we got information that several people have again been added to the payroll. You are aware of the crisis of ghost workers in Nigeria. It's not limited to one particular place. So the EFCC was called in, they conducted investigation, and it discovered that additional 594 persons were added to the payroll and another 162. Now, when you added that together, so that came back to 2,000. That's how you arrive at 2,414.
Okay, so you sacked the earlier 1,600 that you had earlier approved alongside the 500 that the EFCC discovered.
Let me just continue the story so that you get the clearer picture. So when these 594 and the other ones, that's 162, were discovered, it was agreed that their money should be stopped whilst further informations I embarked upon. Now, the government carried out investigation, and it was discovered that even those 1,658 that were adjudged to be qualified, that the same thing that had played out when they were asked to hire 1,100 played out all over again. And that was at the level of bureaucracy. Of course, you have officials that have been suspended as a result of that. You have some of them who are undergoing disciplinary measures at the level of the civil service. Of course, you know, we are not allowed to speak extensively on that until the process has been concluded. But I can tell you that officials have been suspended as a result of that development. Now, having discovered that 594 and additional 162 were unlawfully inserted to the payroll, and then those ones came up with the allegation that, yes, even the 1,658 that you claimed are qualified, who are our colleagues, we have many of them who have just ordinary national diploma, who have HND without any teaching qualification, who have, it was as ridiculous as people having just the school leaving certificate, secondary school leaving certificate. So, of course, the question then arose, are you going to pinpoint those ones that are qualified and those ones that are competent? Now, the 594 people were raising an issue that when you check their own employment letter and you check those of the 1,654, it was dated between January and April 2019, which means they all belong to the same category. Now, to be fair to everybody, it was agreed that the best decision, however painful, is to start the entire process anew. Now, don't forget that from the beginning, the process had been faulty. You had approval for 1,100, you hired 2,414, and in subject not approved, you had scenarios where people were just given employment letter without any examination, without any interview. And these people are meant to teach our children. So the government had to decide whether to please just 2,414 people or mortgage the future of our children. Kwara State has roughly 3.5 million people. Now, the future of nearly 1 million children, if we can put it that way, will be in jeopardy if you decide to say, okay, let us just look away and move on. Now, what the government has done is not just to sack and say, oh, we are leaving it at that. No, what the government is saying is that we are starting the entire process anew. And the approval this time around is for the SUBEB and TESCOM, that's Teaching Service Commission. SUBEB is meant for the junior secondary school and primary school, and then TESCOM is for the senior secondary school. Now you have 2,000 approval for TESCOM, Teaching Service Commission, and you have the remainder for SUBEB. Now, the process is clear-cut. The process is tech-driven, and the process is open to all, including those people who have been asked to go. So it's not like you're doing blanket firing of people. No. What we are trying to do is to make sure that we get the foundation right. We do things the proper way. So even those people who have been asked to go now, they have opportunity to prove that they are truly qualified and competent to teach in the new process. Once the process throws you up as competent, then you'll be given a slot.
Okay, so that because we don't have much time, I have like 5 minutes left. So before I go to the final question, I'd just like to ask you this. I mean, still on what you have just explained. Is there anybody at the commission, which you have rightly stated now, that has been punished for what is clearly a case of incompetence? Because if the governor had charged you with responsibility to first verify the number of teachers that were hired by the previous administration, and you presented 1,600 plus people that were, verified by you and submitted to the governor, and then months later, we are now finding out that a lot of them in that 1,600 either did not have the requisite qualification or they were smuggled into the list by some funny scheme. Is there anybody being held culpable at the commission for that level of incompetence that has been displayed? Because it's going to cost the Kwara State government a lot more money to now drive an entire recruitment process again from the ground. So who is being punished for that incompetence?
I think I mentioned this whilst I was explaining it, that some officials have been suspended, including a permanent secretary. Okay. A permanent secretary was suspended as a result of that.
Okay.
And of course, some directors are also undergoing various level of disciplinary measures.
Fantastic. So final question before I let you go, sir. I understand that the Kwara State government, please correct me if I'm wrong, is yet to implement the minimum wage of 30,000 naira. Quickly, are you paying the 30,000 or you're still paying 18,000 before I go on with the question?
Well, we are in the process of doing that. We are negotiating with the labor union at the moment. Okay, we don't want to agree on something and then back down on it.
Okay, so that leads me to my question, which is the government able to pay the 30,000 naira minimum wage, or its finances are not strong enough, or it's not viable enough to sustain it 30,000 naira minimum wage, and hence you have to negotiate a lower amount?
Well, there's no straight answer to that. It's not a yes or no question for me. It requires some explanation. The minimum wage is a law, and that law affects every state in Nigeria. To that extent, we have said it repeatedly that we are ready to pay the minimum wage. Now, where the question is not whether you are going to pay the minimum wage or you are not paying the minimum wage. That is resolved because it's a law. Where the question is, and this is not limited to Kwara alone, is the consequential adjustment. Now, if you are saying that the workers at the lowest rung of the cadre are going to get 30,000 naira every month, don't forget that you are possibly upgrading them from a particular amount to 30,000. When you upgrade them, you are taking them to some persons to the level where some persons were also taking that 30,000 naira. This is what I mean. When you hire somebody on level 1 to 6, so you are saying level 1 would take 30,000 naira. Level 2 may take maybe 30,500 naira, something like that. Level 3 may take 31,000 or thereabouts. Something like that. You get to level 7. Now, those people you are upgrading, don't forget, by the time you continue to upgrade them like that, get to a point where the man on level 6 or level 5 will be earning what the man on level 7 currently earns. Now, there is no justice in that. The implication is that you have to raise the man on level 7 to another pay grade. If you were giving him 31,000 before, you may have to make it 32,000 or 33,000. I'm just giving an example. And that is what is called consequential adjustment. The man on level 8 too, maybe he was possibly earning 32,000 naira. You have to upgrade him to 33 or 34. So the man on level 9, you have to do the same thing. And it goes up like that until you get to the peak, which is level 17. That is what is called the consequential adjustment. Now, that has always been the crux of the matter. What can you pay? What quantum can you add to their own pay? So that is where the challenge is. Now, what we are saying now is we do not have problem with paying the lowest worker 30,000 minimum wage. But let us look at what the state can reasonably afford for those at the on the upper grades. What can we afford? Now, labor may be asking for 10 naira, for instance, as consequential adjustment. And then the government will be saying, hey, look at our resources. We can only afford 5 naira. So the level we are in now is such that we are looking for the middle ground. We want to meet the middle ground. You are aware, when you look at the country today, you have some states that had signed the minimum wage law. They paid it for 1 or 2 months, and they are back to where they were. So we don't want to do that in Kwara. We want to ensure that whatever we agree with the labor union, we are able to pay consistently. That is where we are now.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Ajakai. It was an interesting conversation with you, and I wish you the best in your duties and responsibilities. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Appreciate it.